every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
You need the right people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you have the right people in the right place, but at the wrong time.
I've got to keep going forward. I've got to keep looking for revenue streams. I've got to keep looking for growth, keep looking at new ways of doing things.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling a business is not necessarily that easy. If it were, we wouldn't have the vast majority of businesses remaining below 10 employees. However, there are some sound principles of successfully scaling a business, and the really good news is that those principles are intrinsically linked with building a valuable business. So that means that if we're building a scalable business, then we're also building a valuable business. If you'd like to understand more about those principles and access a range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey, then why not take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk. That's BizSmarts, BIZSMARTS. On this week's episode of ScaleUp Radio, I talk with Rachel Taplin, who is the CEO of Media Matchmaker. And it's a unique business, certainly for us on ScaleUp Radio, in that it connects organisations and entrepreneurs with journalists who are looking for help with a specific story or subject. Rachel's career trajectory is also a fascinating one, including an incredibly successful franchise called Mums in Control. But it's great to hear Rachel's drive to help SMEs across her career. And this is undoubtedly her passion, and it's refreshing to see that she's managed to turn it into a successful business. And as always, there's a lot of ground that we cover in our conversation, but some of the key things are around the very distinct difference between PR and marketing and what the power of the two is when it comes to your business. We talk about just because you might think that a story about your business isn't of interest to anyone doesn't mean that a journalist won't want to speak to you about it, and how you can capitalize on their needs and help them to deliver what they need to deliver. We talk about structuring your business in a way that you can still survive even if you lose your biggest client. That's something that happened to Rachel. And we also talk about sales and marketing being rooted in relationships and talking to one person being the only contact for a client, and how that's so powerful. So don't think that this episode is only for people who work in the media or are looking to be influencers, if you like. There are some genuinely practical pieces of advice from Rachel in our conversation that can be used in your marketing strategy for any size of business, no matter where you are in your scale-up journey. So let's go across and hear from Rachel. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm here with Rachel Taplin, the CEO and founder of Media Matchmaker. So Rachel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on board. So Media Matchmaker, what's that about? What do you do?
So we're very unique. We connect organizations and entrepreneurs to journalists that are looking for help with stories, articles, and expert comments. Think of it a bit like a dating app, but for business owners and journalists without the swiping.
Sounds brilliant. So how does that differ then, so from a PR agency who would probably normally handle that kind of thing for a business, I guess?
Yeah, it's mostly for small business owners and in-house marketing teams that want to look after their own PR. We do work with PRs. They do a great job. They really do, especially if they're specialised in a certain sector. But a lot of journalists want to go direct to source, or they just want to build the relationship. And a lot of organisations and entrepreneurs want to actually build the relationship themselves with maybe the finance editor of the Telegraph or the Times or the Guardian, and get to know them and become the go-to person. So it's working with PRs as well, but from our point of view, it's going direct to journalists.
Sounds very interesting. So can you give us a feel for the size of the business? What sort of stage you've got it to?
Yeah, so I started helping business owners to secure their own publicity as a business owner myself that needed PR. And I've been helping business owners, hundreds of thousands of business owners since 2012. And in the last 5 years or so, I've been trying to build my own media platform that does all the things I wanted it to do with massive scalability. And that's where we're at now. So we've got access to over 60,000 UK journalists across TV, radio, radio and print, and we're speaking to hundreds of business owners every single week and month to see if they want to get featured with us. We're now also connecting to associations and organisations and universities so we can feature their lecturers, their academics. So it's really, it's just about to fly, which is fantastic.
Sounds brilliant. And how does the business model work?
So I've set it up so that it was most importantly affordable. So there's 3 different media passes that organisations can join on. It's totally free for journalists currently to use and access, because then the more journalists we get using it, the more that we'll get organisations. So typically a journalist would go to our platform and say, I need help today with a story on interest rates and how it's going to affect, maybe property experts and that kind of thing. So they would go to our media database and they'd say, right, I'm going to search for a property expert. So organisations can put their profiles up and say, I'm the property expert or the fintech expert, and your profile would pop up. And then journalists can also do what's called a media request. So they can say, I need help with a story, or I'm a radio producer for the BBC and I need someone to come on the show in an hour, to talk about property. And we match the people. So we set all the criteria. So as an organisation, you come on board and you set your criteria. So the way that the business kind of is set up for organisations and SMEs and entrepreneurs is that they choose the media pass that's right for them. There's a starter which is free. So you can at least put your profile on, because I think if let's say you were a property expert and there was only one property expert, I'd rather the journalists find someone than no one.
Yeah.
And then you can then go up to what we call a backstage media pass. And that's where your profile pops up ahead of the others. As a property expert, you would come higher up than the starter media pass. And you can also get what we call daily PR leads as a backstage media pass member. So you actively say, right, I want any media requests from journalists that are talking about business or finance or health and beauty. You can set your criteria and you only get those leads from journalists that are looking for help with stories. So it just means you can jump on a journalist story and get featured on radio. You could be on radio within a couple of hours, or you could respond to an article. And then we have our top media pass, which is an access all areas.
Yeah.
And that's for business owners and marketeers and entrepreneurs that are already doing their marketing. They're actively writing their blogs, but they just want to take it one step further and actually proactively connect to journalists. And that's where they get access to the 60,000 journalists in the UK, and they can contact them specifically about what they write about. Because most people, Kevin, if let's say you've got a tabloid, maybe the Times or the Telegraph, they might have 150, 200 journalists working there, some in-house, some freelance. And what you don't want is your press release to end up just in the news desk. You want it to go to the fintech journalist, the health journalist. Okay. And what we do is we allow you to target the specific journalists that you want, plus you get all their socials and stuff like that. So it's just a great way to and extend your marketing and take it one step further and take it to journalists and influencers that need content. It's great.
Sounds absolutely phenomenal. And is that on these passes, are they on a monthly subscription type basis, or how does that bit work?
Yeah, so I've done it again to be my heart. I've always worked in the media for 30 years, and I've always worked with SMEs, and I've always been an SME myself, so I know that every single penny counts. So the backstage is just £29 a month, and you can cancel at any stage currently whilst we record this, and that's a flexible membership, so you can dip your toe in the water, and there's always a free trial for new starters that can sign up, like most of these subscription things, in the hope that you stay with us. But the access all areas, obviously the value is massive in the database, so it's a 12-month membership and subscription. I mean, the return we get from it, we had one lady not so long ago, she's a relationship expert for over 50s, people specialising in their 50s. She came on with the database, and we didn't even send out a press release. So you don't always need a press release to get media coverage. She just literally sent an intro email to say, this is what I do. These are the subjects I can talk about, relationships over 50 or ghosting or whatever she talks about and specialises in. And we sent it to targeted journalists that write about relationships. And literally, I think we had something like 7 responses within the hour. And she actually secured an exclusive with one of the nationals as well. So it's really powerful stuff. PR is almost like the forgotten marketing tool. And marketeers and small business owners, we almost don't tend to think of it. We think it's for the big corporates, but it's so not. It really isn't.
Well, I think I think it's great that you got us onto that, and I'd definitely like to explore that, because I think, as you say, a lot of, if you're in big corporates, you understand and you see every day the difference between marketing and PR, if you like. I know they're very much linked, but they're separate disciplines, really, and they have, and as you say, PR can be incredibly powerful. As a small business owner, some of us may not be aware of that differentiation for a start, but also then really how to go about it. And we may even think that PR is really just putting out some social media posts and some whatever else, isn't it? We might be thinking about it at that level. So it might be worth just you addressing that a little bit, and just saying, well, what do you see as the power of PR and the difference compared with more traditional marketing activities, if you like?
Well, so traditional marketing has evolved, as we know, and mostly the focus is on the social media side, isn't it, really? So most of the business owners are creating content in some way, but tending to be doing it, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's to their database, or whether it's on the socials across Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is now, according to their target market. What we're saying is that we can see that the majority of the SMEs and even the small, the large companies aren't really then taking that same article and sending it to the media outlets that want content. But what we do is we make sure we show you we train you how to do your PR as well. And that's kind of the missing piece. So not only do we bring you the PR leads, give you all the journalist contacts, we teach you how to do the PR too, so you can take it in-house. But it's really changed over the years. I mean, I worked in media for 30 years and started off in radio. I've interviewed so many journalists over the last 5-10 years, and the way that their news teams work now, even radio, it's all so different. So a journalist that used to just write articles is now a social media journalist. They are their content that they have to create is unbelievable, and they have to output so much more content, yet they've got half the staff that they used to have probably 5-10 years ago. So to put into perspective for you, there's over 44,000 media outlets in the UK. So that's like across traditional and digital PR. So a media outlet could be radio, TV, online, print, and there's over 70,000 influencers. So there's both traditional PR and digital PR now that, anyone should be considering. So certainly, if anyone's listening to this that is writing articles, what we're saying to you is you're writing your article and you're reaching, let's say you might have a list of 2,000 or even 5,000 followers within your email database or your connections. We're saying to you, take that same article that's genuinely offering value, because we know with marketing, we have to give value, and just send it to a targeted trade magazine or an online influencer that needs content to share to their audience that's already established and hungry for content. It's a win-win for absolutely everybody. And it's a great way to grow your following.
And I think that's a really interesting way, because I'm sure, and I've fallen into this trap as well. We think, well, that they won't want our story or whatever. And what you've just clearly articulated is that they are looking for content. So if we can make it easy for them to slot it into what they need and what they're looking for, then presumably that's what we need to be doing. And
it's understanding the difference between advertising and PR. So advertising sells, PR tells. You're telling a story, you're giving value, a bit like your marketing. And that's the difference with it. If you are genuinely adding content that has value, then why would the media outlets not want it? Because when they outsource, they sometimes have to pay for writers. This is a win-win scenario. You give them the content, they are grateful for the content, they credit your business, you get the backlink or whatever, if it's digital PR, it's a win-win for both of you. But most importantly, it builds credibility, it raises your profile, but it brings you new customers, which equals cash in the bank.
And one of the challenges or things that people often say about PR is it's very hard to know whether it's been successful, what it's actually delivered for you. What would you say to that?
It is. It's like any marketing. You can't measure it. They always say 50% of advertising and marketing works, but which 50%? I mean, that's the old kind of saying that's been for years. You can tell if you've had publicity and it's working. You can tell these days. We can see by our website hits and stuff like that. But I'm very much a marketing person myself. So when we talk about PR, we have to get you PR ready as well. And if you come on board, and join us, we have what's called the 6-week publicity challenge. It makes you think about how to get PR ready. Is your website ready? Have you got data capture? Because there's no point in going on as the relationship expert if you've got no offering to say, we've got 7 top tips on what not to do when you're trying to, go on your perfect date. You need some sort of data capture. So it is part of your marketing strategy. So you make sure you leverage it in the best possible way. Once you feature with the journalist, you then become quite, they want to connect with you more because it shows you're media savvy. So we teach our business owners and entrepreneurs things like how to create a press pack, how to have your press page, how to do your bio sheet, all the things that you might not have thought about. They're easy enough to do by really almost just taking and copying your LinkedIn stuff and putting it onto Media Matchmaker, but so that you are helping yourself and you're all good to go and you're media ready.
Sounds absolutely amazing. Is there anything else like this around?
No, honestly, it's been blood, sweat and tears that I've gone through to create this, and I'm so proud of it. And there's nobody that's doing everything that I'm doing currently, touch wood, as we record this. So there's things like media databases. So what happened for me, and then there's things like separate journal request services. So what happened for me is I had a business called Mums in Control, and I hired a PR agency back in the day when business was flying high. We used to make lots of money in 2007, 2008. We had big marketing strategies. So I hired a PR agency because I had no idea at this stage how to do PR. I'd done all the other parts of marketing. And they got me on Good Morning Britain with Lorraine Kelly. It was GMTV back then. And I got featured in the Daily Mail. But what happened was they forwarded on an email to me saying, did you want to get featured in the Daily Mail to talk about flexible franchising, because my business model was franchising.
Right.
Of course, yes, that's just perfect for me, my ideal target market to reach the customers. But then I realized they'd forwarded on an email from a journal request service, and it's like, wow. So PR agencies, they use a journal request service. Then I started looking into it a bit more. And these services weren't really available to us as direct business owners.
Right.
It was almost like an industry secret.
Yes.
And so was the media database. But what nobody's really done is the search for the expert. So what I've done is I've sat and interviewed so many journalists about saying, what do you want? Well, they want immediacy. So the journalists now, the way they report the news is very different to how it was years ago. They do what we do every morning, see what's trending in the news. So they therefore have to adjust their program exactly the same to report on what's trending. So, for example, a BBC producer is a good friend of mine. I interview loads of BBC producers or even talk radio or whatever it is. And they'll say, we'll sit down just a few hours before the show and plan it. It's not because we're lazy. It's because we want to be topical. So if they can come to Media Matchmaker and say, right, we're on it now, we need a fintech expert or we need a health and beauty expert, they can go straight to our database and search for that person. But journalists also want diversity. So with our platform, you can put in where your background is from, your ethnicity, if you have any disabilities, because they want to interview everyone that reflects life. Yeah. So I've created the all the elements. So we have the search for the expert, the media requests, the media database, and the PR training. So the answer to your question is nobody's currently doing everything that we do.
Brilliant. And this is UK focused. Is there anything else like it?
Focused for now, yes. Yeah. We've got people abroad. You can see experts that are abroad, but the journalists that we connect to are UK focused. But in the future, we will look at licensing it because franchise is my background, and maybe do a master license in different countries.
Excellent, brilliant. Well, let's. You mentioned that you started off in radio 30 years ago. So, and you've just given us a little bit of an insight as to what made you start Media Matchmaker. So, let's do that. Let's go back to that. What really got you into this, and when was it you started Media Matchmaker?
So we rebranded. So I've been helping people since 2012 with the PR, and that was with my company called I've still got Blue Boo Media. And then it was interesting, and this is obviously it's all a true story, but I thought it kind of needs to say what it does, like a bit like was it the Teflon advert or whatever it was? It needs, so
on the tin, yeah,
exactly what he says. Ron Seal, that's it. Yes, sorry, Ron Seal. Yeah. So I thought, Media Matchmaker would be great, because that's what I am. And after I'd been to see a coach myself, he said, you are a media matchmaker, you're the media bridge that connects the journalists. I'm like, I really like that. And years ago, I was actually on Blind Date, Cilla Black. So it's kind of all like fitting really nicely. But that's a story for another time.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So I kind of thought, that's just brilliant, Media Matchmaker. So then I went to register all the socials, the Instagram, the Twitter and Facebook, and it had all gone. I was gutted. Even the URL had gutted. Anyway, I just could not believe it. I thought, I'm just going to look into this a bit more. And I'd registered the name Media Matchmaker probably 4 years before. And I'd just forgotten and didn't have the confidence or whatever, I don't know, to do it. So I launched last February the 14th for Valentine's Day, because it's Media Matchmaker and, connecting and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a brilliant year. It really has been fantastic.
Yeah, excellent. And it sounds like from what you're saying that you've had a number of businesses in the past and whatever. So it'd be great to explore. What have you learned from those past experiences that you're bringing into Media Matchmaker? Yeah,
and it's all evolved from what I love and suit around my lifestyle and my family, and what fits right with my values. So started off, as I said, in radio at, you probably hear my Birmingham accent and the twang. So BRMB, okay. I joined as their youngest ever junior sales executive, and 5 years later left as their youngest ever sales manager. But my clients were direct clients, so they didn't have an ad agency. So I always worked with SMEs. So every £1,000 they spent, or every £2,000, they needed their return on investment. Yeah. So I got used to looking after my clients and doing the best for them, and literally fighting for them, getting them the best spots on radio. And then I set up an ad agency. So I approached all my clients and said, look, if I set up an ad agency, would you come with me? And the MD at BRMB at the time gave me her blessing, gave me a credit account and said, yeah, okay, because we know you love radio, you'll still support us, you'll still spend as much money, if not more, with us. And then I went into kind of the world of advertising. So we were a full service agency, had that for, I think, about 8 years. And at the time I met my husband at BRMB and we set up this together. And then it was great. The business grew. We got a lot of mobile phone clients, a lot of retail clients, and we had a major mobile phone company with a £10 million account they gave to us. And literally overnight, the off-the-page advertising changed. Yes. And he pulled the plug and we could not recover from it. So we had to close the agency down. We did it responsibly and we found everybody jobs, but it's a horrible time, isn't it, when you go through business with stuff like that? Yeah. So it's a good time to kind of say, right, what do we want to do? And my daughter was really quite young, and as anyone listening to this will know, when you have your own business, the business almost owns you unless you're really blessed. Mm-hmm. You work many hours as you can, your personal life comes second best to your business life. And I realized this was the time to kind of regroup and think, really, what is it I wanted to do? So I took all my kind of expertise, selling advertising, working with SMEs, and took everything I love to do. And I set up my own community magazine. Started selling advertising. Then I thought, actually, I could take this online. Then I thought about, well, actually, I would love to develop something within the mumpreneur market. And nobody at that stage had trademarked mumpreneur, and I should have done it, but I never did. Yeah. And I created a magazine called Mums in Control, and franchised it. So I had 60 franchisees across the country. I had a print run of about 250,000 copies. and got to interview some amazing celebrities, got asked to do some fantastic things like organise a Mumpreneur Summit for the Equality and Human Rights Commission. You know, I think I don't deserve to be here, but I was asked to organise this event.
That slight imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Exactly that. It's exactly that. But I was so proud of it. So I got to interview like Lorraine Kelly, funnily enough, you know, funny how things go full circle, and Nell McAndrew, I think it was, and Melinda Messenger, and Trisha Goddard was one of the most inspirational women I've ever interviewed because of her backstory. But it was great because we had national content in the magazine, but then the local franchisees would fill it full of local advertising, and that's how they made their money. And that's when my journey started with, I wanted to raise my profile and the profile of the business, and I had no idea how to go about it. And that's when I then appointed a PR agency in London and paid them £1,500 a month. Yep. And then if you remember, in 2008, 2009, we had the credit crunch.
Okay, yep.
And my whole business model became challenged overnight. So advertising was the first thing that got pulled. Literally, marketing just stopped. Mm-hmm. So my franchisees were panicking because they couldn't bring their revenue in. Print was going through the roof. The paper for print was going through the roof. I was going through a divorce at the time, so my life was completely challenged. It was a really, really difficult time, but obviously needed to keep going. So I changed the magazine to an online digital magazine and got a reach of about 500,000. I partnered with Mumsnet and Annabelle Carmel, but it was almost ahead of its time. Nobody was ready for digital. This isn't going to work, an online magazine. And I just couldn't make it work in terms of the revenue with agencies. They were like, no, we're not quite ready yet, So I closed it down. But after I got so much publicity, I launched my own National Working Mums Day, which was amazing. And I got featured on 70 radio stations, 15 of which were live interviews, because I followed a formula of how to kind of launch your own national day. And that's when, Kevin, it kind of changed it for me. It was like, wow, PR can massively have an impact on your business, whether you're flying high or whether you are really kind of up against the wall. And I've seen both sides of it, not only for me, but for all my clients as well. And that's how it's come about. You know, I'm really passionate about what I do. I love it. And I've literally spent the last 5 years building this platform.
Wow. What a story. So a real serial entrepreneur. You've had some highs and some lows along the way.
I think we all have. I don't honestly think that anyone that's been in business for 25 or 27 years, I think it is now, it's not plain sailing. Of course, it's not. It's hard work, you know, and you have to learn your lessons as you go along and be a better person as you go along. And then also you realize I'm 51 now, so I'm looking, you know, 55 to 60, slowing down, you know, and I'm trying to build a business model that can be one to many, that doesn't always need me. And so, but still offers massive value and something that you're proud of, that genuinely helps people.
Yeah, so you've teased out a couple of really interesting points there, and I certainly want to explore them. So what have you learned then? You had to close that first agency down over reliance on one customer, I guess. Yeah. What are the things you think you've learned from the different businesses that you've run, and the successes and the things you got right and not so right? What are the key things?
So much. I mean, gosh, you could just be here all day, but I think you know, eggs in all one basket, you know, is obviously you're making sure that you can always afford to lose your biggest account. I think that's something. And it was interesting because I went on a values day, which is kind of, we've all become quite spiritual. Well, not all of us, but I've become quite spiritual as a human being and heart-centered with everything I do. And I tend to have a lot of clients like that. And I went on a value speaking day because I do a lot of speaking at business events. And Joe Simpson is an international speaker and author. And it was interesting because you means test your own values. And mine came out that my top value was safety and security. So for me, I now, you know, I'm not a big risk taker. I'm really not. I have to do everything calculated. I have to have the money in the bank before I can take the next step. I'm not a typical, you know, when I was married, it probably worked quite well because my ex-husband, he was you know, oh, let's just invest, speculate to accumulate. And I'm like, oh no, let's get the money in the bank first. So there's elements of me that having a partner sometimes in business is good because you have the yin and the yang. And sometimes that holds me back now, potentially. But I've learned so many lessons. But I think you have to, you know, worrying I don't know whether it's a female thing, but I worry and I care about everything. Mm-hmm. So one of the best books I've ever read is Dale Carnegie, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And you have to, I like a worst case scenario. Again, I'm always happy to be honest. If I can always think, what's my worst case scenario here? Okay, my worst case scenario is okay. I'm all right.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? I had somebody I knew very well. He's no longer with his family, but he used to say that all the time. And essentially, so it's not only just what's the worst that can happen, but he'd also say, did anybody die? No. Yeah. Well, then it's a good day. sort of stuff.
Absolutely, and it is putting things into perspective, isn't it? And I've done a lot of self-development stuff, about the mindset and what goes through our heads, and the majority of stuff that we worry about never comes true. But when you're in the moment, it's really difficult. So it's learning to take yourself out, and trust me, I don't always do it, but it's learning to take yourself out and have perspective on things, isn't it?
Yeah, very good. So if I can just explore for a minute, you built Mums in Control up to 60 franchisees. I mean, can you tell us about that? Finding and managing franchisees and making that side work.
Yeah, absolutely. It was something that was, again, I was very, very lucky when I launched. I did it very differently to most franchisors, because normally you have a successful business that you have to prove the formula and have all the systems in place, and that's what people buy into. So what I did was I took the summer off, and the idea just came actually when I bought a static caravan down in Poole, and my daughter was with me, and I created this idea, and I just put it out to a website. I wanted to work with mums like me that wanted to work flexibly around their children. So there are some amazing talent out there of mums that want to work flexibly, but back in the day, we weren't as open, businesses were not as open-minded as supporting these amazing talented people. So I kind of got into a group of mums that wanted to work but couldn't find that flexibility. So I said, look, come on board as a founder member to start with. I took 5 on, and they started the journey with me. They put in literally a small amount, hundreds of pounds, but because I got the credentials, I'd worked in radio, I got the advertising, I've got my backstory, they bought into me and trusted me, and we all grew it together. We all did our first edition together, and then it just grew from there. And then we had the model, we had the systems, we shared the highs and the lows together. It was just fantastic, and it was great because they were earning, not huge amounts of money, but enough that they could have the holiday or buy the car that they wanted, while still putting their family first. So I was so proud of this business. I absolutely loved it. So I was gutted almost when the market changed so much, and then, and we closed it down. But I've still got all the magazines now and my awards that I've won and everything. But franchising it's an interesting concept, isn't it? It's a great way to grow a business, but franchisees, they go through phases. They're like, they come on board, they're all enthusiastic and they want to know everything. Then they get to the stage, franchisors will relate to this if anyone's listed, and they become almost like, teenagers. They're rebelling and they're pulling against you and asking everything and like, I can do it better myself and blah, blah, blah. And then they get to the phase when they're just amazing, when they're ready to retire. And you go through the phase with a franchisee. And as long as you understand how we all grow together and that our needs are in different places, then it can be a perfect match for absolutely everybody. But it was a massive learning curve, and for a small while I didn't say the F word, because it was like but yeah, again, it was a massive learning curve. But I've had another franchise business as well, before we set up Mums in Control, when I was still married, and we had hundreds of franchisees come on then. So it was something I kind of learned and got into.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You've really just made me remember a book that I've been reading called Street Smart Franchising, by Joe Matthews and Don DeBolt and Deb Percival by the looks of it. But they describe that journey that you've just done pretty much exactly the same way. You've kind of got that exciting phase at the beginning, and then they're out there and they realize, oh, it's not quite as easy as I thought. You got that, he calls it the grind sort of phase. And then as you say later on, it's like, well, why do I need the franchisor now? I can do all of this stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be said for it, but as a franchisor, you really do have to think: is this the right model for my business? To grow? But it's a great way to grow, and I think as long as, like anything, you're really open and upfront, and you take the people on for the right reasons, with transparency, and then it's a great way for everybody to grow.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So yeah, lots of really good things there. And what about so I guess would that be the business where you've had to manage the most people in terms of making sure people are all on track? Or
yeah, I had when we had the ad agency, we had up to about and the other business we had about 20 staff.
Okay.
And it's interesting, isn't it, at the moment, because I grew Mums in Control through partnerships. So I partnered with a creative agency that wrote all the content. I was the editor-in-chief ultimately, but then I had a creative agency that wrote all the articles for me and everything. And we partnered on a profit share basis. That feels right for me now at the stage where I'm at. I don't particularly, I've got Kickstarters at the moment who have been brilliant actually, but they take a lot of training. So working with a team is great, but it's time consuming, and so for me now as well, it's a combination of both, and it's having and outsourcing people that already know what they're doing, that, you can just bring them up to speed with your product and they know their job. So it's interesting on how I've done it in lots of different ways. I've had, sleepless nights over staff, and even recently, not sleepless nights recently, but you love them as you become a partnership and a team. Even my Kickstarter that just left last week, I'm like the mum to them, and that's how you feel. And you have to be careful in business that you don't take it all on too emotionally. But then it's great, and then like anything, a bit like the franchisees, when they come on board, they're all enthusiastic, then they're off sick, and then they do this, and they've got that, and and then they come good, and then it's time for them to fly out the nest, But the rewards are when they say to you, I've got the most amazing job, I couldn't get it without you. And so staff,
So what sort of things did you do to this, maybe with the team of 20 people that you had, to keep them motivated, keep them on track and buying into the ideals and everything that you're doing? What sort of things do you think to make that work with a team of 20?
If I'm being truthful, Kevin, probably not as much as I should have done back then. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You learn, and I think you have to learn what floats people's boats, because I was very much, as a salesperson, driven by targets and revenue and, an incentive. Not everyone's driven that way. It's not about the money for some people. It's about flexibility, working less hours so they can be with their family. It's about appreciation and being recognised. So it's understanding them as people. And I think as you mature and as we've evolved as business leaders ourselves now, it's understanding what their values are and what they're trying to get out of it, and realising that it takes time. And I've always loved having people that really are quite new to something, because then you can mould them on your own way, in your own values, in your own kind of thought processes, and they become mini yous, I suppose. So that's was always, back in the day when I first started, I used to have like the YTSs, and again, it's great from that point of view. Maybe it's because I'm a natural nurturer, really. But I've learned so much. But I think it's finding out what they want out of it and accepting they're there for their own reasons, not for yours.
Okay, and were all those 20 reporting essentially direct to you, or did you have? Yeah,
no, me and then my business partner, who was my husband at the time. But yeah, obviously we managed them, and had to motivate them in different teams, whether it be sales, whether it be marketing, whether it be the accounts and finance. So yeah, so I tended to look after the sales. So I was going out, making sure we were getting the money in, and then I was looking after the finance as well. And then I didn't really look after the marketing side.
Okay. So you split the roles in that sort of way.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned marketing, and I kind of I'm asking this a little bit tongue in cheek, but I try to ask everybody as well. You know, what marketing or lead generation activities have you found to be most successful for your business?
It's building relationships. So for me, what I'm comfortable with is picking up the phone and speaking to someone, or actually meeting someone in person. Speaking has been fantastic for me over the years, because you genuinely give great content. You try and help people as much as you can. And then if they resonate with you or think they can help you, they come to you naturally. So that's been a great way for me. I've never been a traditional kind of marketing, you know, from the SEO point of view, from the from Google and stuff like that. I'm still quite a traditional person, probably my age. So like the youngsters now that are in my business, like, we need to be doing TikTok, we need to be doing this. Like, oh my God, I haven't got time for TikTok. But it's probably what I should be doing. So you have to, I do with what is my comfort zone, but then I have to look at the things that the kids are telling me to do as well, because that's where the market is moving.
Yeah, no, excellent. So, okay, so really good. And just going back to your business model with something you were saying earlier on, you know, you're creating with Media Matchmaker, you're creating this kind of, there's two sides to it, aren't there? As you said at the beginning, you for it to work, you've got to be able to make the match, and therefore to be able to make the match, you've got to have both the journalist side, and you've got to have the people that need the journalists, the business owners there. So, and often with that kind of business model, it can be quite hard to get them both working at the same time. So you haven't got one without the other. How have you managed to do that? I mean, you hinted again at it earlier, I think, but
it's spot on. So it is a chicken and egg scenario, isn't it? You can't have one without the other. So journalists are just as important to us as organisations and entrepreneurs, if not more important. Well, exactly the same, because we've got to have paying customers to have a sustainable business, and we've got to have the journalists use it. So it's about making sure that we're constantly marketing to them, which we absolutely are, but also helping them along. So, you know, we will put the journal request through for them, you know, and also then remind them you can be doing this yourself. So it's one of those, we've got a team of people that are doing that, and then it becomes tipping point, and we're almost, I can feel it, we're getting to tipping point where it, you know, people are coming on board, they post, it's like, wow, you know, the first journalist that actually posts a media request, it's like, oh my gosh, this is really working, you know, and again, the first client that, you know, secured national coverage or whatever, you know, messaged me to say we got featured here. It's like, it's just amazing. It really is. So it's constantly marketing to journalists and reminding them that we're there, and that they can post that media request via our platform or use it as a search. But it's also what's traditionally happened with things like journal request service and media databases. It's really mostly targeted to the nationals, whereas we're really also focusing on regional press and regional media, because a lot of business owners just want the media coverage in their regional area and local area, and they're up against it too. You know, they need content as well, especially online content. So we are focusing on the regional areas, the trade and industry areas, and the national. So we're trying to cover all bases for our clients.
So did you go out to the journalists first and say, you know, we've got this great idea, you know, come on board?
Yeah, so I've been working with journalists. Thankfully, you know, when I had Bluebeam Media, I was interviewing a lot of journalists already. So, you know, like from the Telegraph, from Men's Health, from BBC, from Talk Radio. So I've almost kind of earned my stripes first, and then I could show the journalists, these are the caliber of journalists that we've been already speaking to. Okay. So then when you show them that, then they're happy to come on board, because they're busy people. You know, they only want to go with someone if they're going to get quality sources. So we could show them, we could provide that. So because we kind of had the backstory, I suppose, if you like, and also because I've been doing it a long time, hopefully it shows. And also I've been working with journalists to build this database. So, you know, I've been having meetings with, you know, the editor-in-chief of the Post and Mail, from the commissioning editor from ITN News has been really helpful, from, you know, the BBC. So I've been saying, what is it you want as a journalist? I've been trying to understand the journalist's mind, and they can get it. They can see that it's very different.
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier on that this is for PR companies as well. So PR companies do they take one of those same membership packages, or how does that?
We've built it differently, and there's quite a lot of new things we're adding on. So PRs can come on board with us and have what we call their own client accounts. So they can, you know, set up an account, maybe have 10 10 licenses or 20 licenses, and they can put all their clients' profiles on so that when the journalist searches, they can find their clients' profiles, and then they can have access to the media database as well. So obviously we charge that differently. But what we're also doing is we're speaking to universities as well, so that universities can put their academics on it. They'll buy a license and they'll put all their academics on it. But we're just launching later this week. Actually, we're just doing the handover on Friday, so that now it's not just media requests that you can get through the platform. You can get speaker requests as well. So if you're looking for speaker opportunities, and you'll be able to, we're taking out as well podcast requests, because as you know, as a podcast host, that you are looking for new podcast guests. And wouldn't it be great if you could register and search for a podcast guests? So our members will also be able to say, I'm interested in podcast interviews, I'm interested in media interviews or speaker opportunities. So that's something new. And then one of the things I'm proud of, I'm in talks at the moment, we're trying to create a rising star as part of our foundation work, that we are going to allow anyone that wants to get into the media a free profile, whether they want to be a journalist, a producer, or just want to work in the media and they're new to it. We're going to allow them to set up a free profile so that the journalists can find them, or business owners can find them and give them work and match them that way. Because we've got the platform that has massive scalability. We've set the foundations right, so if we can help people and give back as well, then the Rising Stars is something I'm currently working on too.
Excellent. So building this platform sounds like, and you mentioned it's taken sort of 5 years to develop, sounds like a significant investment. So can I ask, how have you gone about managing to fund that?
Yeah, I've put literally tens of thousands of pounds into it myself. So anything, from a business, my focus has always been to build this with sustainability and scalability. So I've, put a lot of money into it myself. So in lots of different ways, worked with different developers and designers and different platforms as well. So, yeah, it's something that the company, obviously, as a director, owes me a lot of money back. But it's not been about the money for me. It's been about getting it right and making sure that it works, so we are ready to scale up. And that's the position I've spent 12 months constantly going back into development, adding this, tweaking that. And it's interesting because I interviewed Janie Lee Grace from BBC Radio 2, and she's my voiceover on the platform. And when I was showing it to her, she was like, "Oh my God, you just need to get this out there. Come on." I'm like, "Yeah, okay. I need to stop developing now and just get it out to market."
Yeah. Okay, great. So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? That great question. If I'm interviewing you in 5 years' time, what would you say has to have happened for you to consider those 5 years?
That it's continued to grow and evolved, and it's genuinely helping business owners and the journalists. It's just the go-to place. So what I want it to be as the go-to place for journalists to use, Media Matchmaker is the place, and for business owners to know that this is an amazing opportunity and a cost-effective way to enhance their marketing. So where do we want to go in 5 years' time? Certainly, be very well established in the UK and possibly, licensing it abroad as well. I want to get the Rising Stars up and running, because I think that would be absolutely fantastic, because they're the journalists of our future. So if we can help them now along their track, then they're going to be more loyal to Media Matchmaker. But hopefully, for me, it will be to either bring in a team of people, and so that I can slow down myself, or maybe even looking at kind of working with other media partners so we can all grow together.
Brilliant. Well, I certainly wish you all the best in achieving that. It sounds like it's going to be another really exciting journey. One of the questions I would like to ask everybody, and you've covered a little bit of this, but if you were to go back to your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh gosh, so much. I think the worrying thing has been a massive thing. You care so much about everything you do, and I still do to this day. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But the hours before I've spent worrying, that's unnecessary. But that comes with maturity, doesn't it, and confidence, I think, and also learning how to manage your mindset. So I discovered The Secret in 2008 by Rhonda Byrne, and all about gratitude and thoughts become things, and the power of your thought, really. So that's the advice I would give to my younger self. If I could realise how we talk to ourselves. We can talk ourselves into a good day or into a bad day. Mm-hmm. The choice is there. The day is exactly the same. Yeah. And for me, mindset has been a massive, massive shift for me in how I approach everything in my life.
Amazing. And you've covered again, sort of one of the questions I always like to ask is what sort of resources, books, podcasts, would you recommend? So you mentioned The Secret already. Who was that by again?
Rhonda Byrne.
Rhonda Byrne, and you mentioned...
I listen to loads, Kevin. I go through phases with things. At the moment, I'm listening to Darren Hardy, which is the Daily Habits, the Compound Effect.
Yes.
Because it's about be consistent, because that's one of the things I've probably not been as good as business owners. We're always so busy. The Michael Gerber, we don't work on the business or in the business or whatever it is.
Yes.
So we know all the lessons, but we have to apply these things. So for me, it's been about commitment and the compound effect. And, so I'm listening to Darren Hardy, and you can subscribe to his free Darren Dailies, and it just gets you in the mood. And it's the first thing I listen to in the morning, just to get my mindset going in the right way. But I have a kind of, if I'm ever feeling, like I need some motivation in any way or a bit flat, I just stick on something that I know is going to lift me, or even a YouTube. It can be as simple as, you're going to succeed today, or you're going to choose happiness. Some people can't stand that, stuff, yes. But it works for me, and it does what it needs to do.
Excellent. And are there any apps or bits of technology that you found to be really useful? I mean, obviously your system, but anything aside from that you found really helpful?
That's an interesting question. And no, not really. There's no apps that I tend to use that I thought, wow, this is fantastic from a business point of view. But then the minute we finish this, I'll probably think of loads, but nothing springs to mind. I mean, the stuff we have accessible to ourselves now is just amazing, isn't it? We can YouTube anything, the training, if we want to learn something, it's all there. It's just amazing. But I think you have to learn to focus on one thing rather than trying to be great at absolutely everything.
Okay, yeah.
And that's something I'm learning still. It's okay that I'm not doing, like I said earlier, the TikTok, be consistent with Instagram or be consistent with LinkedIn. But no, there's no real apps that I use. I'm just trying to think what's on my phone from a business point of view, other than my banking app. I use that all the time.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, so that focus and that consistency sounds like that's coming through as challenges for you at the minute that you're focusing on. Yeah.
Well, of course, because it's so busy, it's where do you put your time, but you've still got to do those consistent things all the time. So managing your days, and especially when you've got a team of staff, because you're not just then yourself, you have to plan their day too. So yeah, it's getting into a new rhythm with it. And I've been part of the program through the Growth Hub and everything, and it's been fantastic, and learning how to do my rhythms and my daily meetings with people. So we're all transparent. We know what we're doing. So, we don't stop learning, do we, as business owners? Every day is a school day, as they say.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed talking with you this morning, Rachel. I think a fantastic story for a start, but some great advice in there for people to pick out and apply into their own businesses. So really, really useful. Thank you very much. Okay. If people would like to find out more about Media Matchmaker, what should they do?
I'd love to help you. There's some blogs. So you can just go to mediamatchmaker.co.uk. There's blogs there that you can listen to with other interviews with journalists, or teach you how to become the expert. I do free events, but just get started. You have to just sometimes immerse yourself into things, don't you? And get started with a free trial and give it a go, because if it works for you and you get something and you get confident and connected to a journalist, and hopefully you'll stay with me. But also, if you're already in the space that you're doing your marketing and you work with a budget and you want to set up a discovery call, I'm happy to do that. And we can look at the access all areas. MediaPass and have a conversation with me or with my team, and we can just guide you through it to see if it's right for you. But just, even if you don't work with me, just think about 5 media outlets of where you'd love to be and start connecting to them. We have this thing called Google. Find out the lifestyle journalist, the health and beauty, the business editor, and start following them, start complimenting them, start positioning yourself as the expert, but just do something.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rachel. Fantastic interviewing this morning.
Thank you.
Don't forget to take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk to access a great range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey. So that's bizsmarts.co.uk, which is bizsmarts.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.